Well, I am sitting down with my very new friend, Emily Cheshire, and I am excited. We're hanging out on a Girls' Friday and talking about conferences and talking about tech and AI and having a blast. So I'm hitting record so that way the rest of everyone can hear our exciting conversation. And so,
Amazing.
welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited. And everyone that I speak to, I will say I could talk accounting, tech, tools, all of these things for days upon end. So anyone that ever wants to listen to me chat about and to talk about it with me, love it. I could go for days.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't tell you how happy that makes me feel because, years ago I would sit down at the dinner table and I would start talking about accounting, and my husband was like, and I love it. So going to conferences, that was one of my favorite things to do, was to sit down at a table and be like, let's chat. And now it's technology.
Exactly. And I think everything now is so tech focused and exploring the what can we do? And then you add into that CAS practices in general. And I think that's why I just love that area so much, is that CAS and just kind of, general accounting, outsourced accounting, that is at the forefront of the real possibilities on technology and how we can make our practices better, a better experience for the team and the clients at the same time. So there's so much available right now, and it's really knowing what is going to add value and make everything better. And also, I always describe myself as like a kid in a candy shop, and I just wanted to touch it and test it all and try it all.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, I do feel like it's play. When you enjoy testing technology and then talking about it, it feels like a very lucky place to be able to exist in such a technology boom that's happening right now.
Exactly, exactly. And we were testing when we first started testing an AI tool. This is a couple of months ago. I was so excited. And we made a dummy demo account, right? We didn't want to touch and start meddling with any client data. But exactly that. I was so excited. As soon as it was connected, I went in. I started just hitting all these buttons and pressing all these things. Um, and then my poor colleague of mine had to go in and spend hours fixing it because I was just so excited and just started pressing everything.
Well, I feel that too. And so, I've even created for myself some boundaries. So whenever it comes to testing technology, I do like go ahead and trying it out and being brave, because it does take a sense of you can do this. And so one of the things that I've done for myself is create virtual cards. So that way I can go and test technology, put in my virtual card, and whenever I decide to pull the plug, it's okay. Turn off that virtual card. Do you do anything like that?
That's such a good idea. I will say I don't do it on the virtual card side, but I am famous for going down a rabbit hole with a particular type of tech and then starting to demo everything, chat to everybody. We're even doing it right now and kind of exploring things like, forecasting software and, all
Mm.
of those areas. So I'm the queen of demos, is probably what I would describe myself as.
I enjoy demos too. One of the things that we do with Appy Hour, Heather Satterley and myself, is we do the demos. And so part of our thought is not everybody enjoys those, because you do have to engage with them a bit. But I'm like, ooh, let me ask the questions. Let's pick at the surface and
Yeah.
figure out like what's underneath there. So demos to me are actually super fun.
Yeah. And for me, I always want to know, yes, what have you got today? But what are you about to have tomorrow? What does that timeline look like? Because technology in general and all our tools, they're developing at such a pace. And every tool is starting to build in AI. Pretty much every tool is building in AI, and it's an area of a lot of just general possibility and a lot of software. So that's one of the questions that I'm asking in these tools is, this is amazing what you're showing me today, but what's it going to look like by the end of the year or next year? because there are different tools developing in different ways. And I want to make sure we're working with the tools that are, really thinking ahead and not just focusing on, what is and what was.
That's such a great point. And, you know, as as someone who enjoys talking to the app developers, because if you start giving them a whole lot of information and feedback, they really listen. So, I've had a lot of those conversations that get really deep really quick because they are in such development mode right now. And so even like right now, you're talking about features, but I feel like those features are being built at a rate that I've never seen before.
100%. And I think the pace, you're exactly right, the pace of change. And I think this is the same for not only like accounting and technology in general, is the slowest pace of change will be today.
Yeah.
So, and we are going so quick. When I look at what we're changing at a practice level, the tools that we're looking at, it's just we are just getting faster and faster and faster. And I think that's what just makes the whole space and just exploring all these other opportunities just really exciting.
I agree with you. And the AI space, I think at the beginning of the year, I thought about in my own firm, I guess it wasn't so much this year, it was last year. I thought about in my own firm building some of my own AI tech. And then I got to the beginning of this year, whenever I really had time to start going and trying things and lifting the hood, seeing if I like it, and be like, okay, no, let me close that door. Let me open another one and test it. And so I moved away very quickly from wanting to develop anything of my own. But what's your standpoint on development of your
Yeah.
own internal AI?
Yeah, I always say this is kind of like a fine balancing act, and I think it's always the play to your strengths. So you're going to have different firms of different sizes, or you might be a sole practitioner, or whatever that looks like. And I always say by playing to your strengths, what do you do at a core? And are you trying to pretend to be something that you're not? And a good example is there are tools that are doing that already, and you might be able to use a contractor or have one developer. Well, chances are they've got 10 plus developers, so they're able to move 10 times quicker. So I'm like, it's probably cheaper. Are you going to get an ROI by doing it in-house? So I think for tools in general, I'm always let's see what we've got in the marketplace first. Does it fit our needs? And then typically the way we're looking at kind of technology and building and customizing things internally is if it's not out there, are
Mhm.
we going to get an ROI in terms of like efficiency or better service by building it in-house? And sometimes the answer is yes. But again, we're going to go through all of those steps first to be, really thinking about, does it make sense for us to do it, or are there better people than us that are out there that we can kind of just work with?
I love that answer. And, I would say the place that I invest the most time in when I'm looking at apps is the workflow.
Correct. Yeah. And I think for we're the same. So we always want to kind of look at the workflow, the what they integrate with, how they integrate. Um, Security is always very top of mind for us. So if they're taking that client data, how are they sharing it? Is it, localized by client? Do they pool it? And those are some of the functionalities that are on our must-have list.
Mhm.
And even if it ticked the boxes of features, we're not going to kind of touch them.
Right.
So, like there's some things that in general we're kind of wanting to explore. And I also think when we're looking at tools, there's so many out there. And I would always say a lot of people kind of go towards the largest or the biggest player in that space for a certain area. But there's new startups all the time as well. And they're the ones that are really good to get to work with early on because your feedback will be listened to. And like even if you're a smaller firm, so you're going to be able to kind of have more of a, input on what their development and what their kind of timelines look like too. So that's always a good thing that we explore as well.
I think that that's really valuable feedback. And I think that you have to, again, find a balancing act there. Because if the tech that's being developed, if they've got good backing and good funding, they've also got the good security that you just pointed out as well. So that's just as important to as listening, because you want to be giving feedback to a company, like you said, that can be trusted. Um, and then also has the resources to be able to develop with that feedback that you're giving them, because it is your time that you are also investing. It might be a
Correct.
little bit, you know, self-interest there for them to develop something that works, but it is on their best interest as well to be listening to that feedback that you're giving them.
Exactly. And we always want to be, ta really taking that kind of partnership approach with all of the tools. So, um, versus, setting up a subscription and away you go, we want to be speaking to the team, meeting with them, learning about them, what their goals are. Are we as much of a fit for them as we think they might be for us? Because then it means that they're also invested in it. So, and it goes back to, yes, it's a service, yes, it's a software, but ultimately we want to build that relationship, which for us is the same thing we want to do with our clients, because they're more inclined to, you know, to your point, listen to our input, wanting to make those changes. And for us, it's also a good kind of investment in our time if we know that they're, partnering with us in terms of our vision as well.
I love that. I think that that's such solid advice. So, knowing that you're a tech guru and this is your playground, what are you interested in and what have you been investing in the AI tech space lately?
Yeah, so just in if we in general, I mean, if we were just kind of take a step back, we're really heavily invested in exploring AI usage across as many areas as possible within the firm. And it's not for us to replace jobs at all. Like that is not what we're looking to do. Everything we're doing really has to touch on three areas, which is making the team experience better and providing them with more opportunities, improving the experience and the services we're able to provide our clients, and then operationally, are we getting any efficiencies? So
Mhm.
they're kind of the three areas that underpin everything that we do. So specifically on the accounting side, we've been exploring AI tools to support us kind of both with the transactional accounting, as well as some of the month-end reconciliations, variance analysis, and day-to-day practice operations. And what that's going to do for us is it's going to free up a lot of capacity within our day-to-day accounting team, enabling us to continue to upskill the team so we can then, instead of being in the systems, doing journal entries and bank reconciliations, we're able to be having more time, having FaceTime with our clients, and again, kind of building the relationship. So that's really our focus, on what we're trying to get to and really how we're trying to utilize AI tools.
I love the conversation because, I've shared that my firm is a baby firm. It will never be big. But I'm in a place that even as a small firm, I've got access to AI tools that are very forward leaning. And so, I think that what's cool is that no matter the size of the firm, the approach to AI just definitely needs to be there. But one of the things I find most fascinating, which Aprio is a large firm, there is a more of a holistic approach that comes into play, and you're describing it right now. It's like that end to end, you're exploring AI in the various different departments. So that way you can figure out holistically, how can we be a healthier firm?
Yeah.
How
And
can we
and
operate?
Exactly, and I'll say kind of the benefit of being small versus large is small, you can pivot. I mean, you could decide to implement a tool today and next week it's live. Whereas for us, it's almost like, trying to change and turn a cruise ship, right? I mean, it's very slow. It needs to be managed meticulously.
A lot of change
Um,
management.
a lot of change management, a lot of people involved. when you're kind of looking at things at scale. So for us to even implement tools, we've got to be certain it's the direction we want to go and that it's going to be beneficial for everyone. But it's one of those that, especially when you kind of think about AI's here already, and you just think a couple of years ago it was still really, RPAs and bank rules. So just in the space of a couple of years, the difference, like the magnitude of that change has been phenomenal. And really we want to make sure our team is equipped with the skills for AI because it's going to be in every kind of facet of accounting at some point. And also we want to make sure we continue to provide the opportunities and being at the forefront of the changes in the industry, because otherwise you're going to have, it doesn't matter what size, what niche you're in, what type of clients you work with, you can guarantee there'll be similar firms out there that if you're not doing it, they will. So, it's really
I
important, I
agree.
think, to, even if you're not sure of it, is just to start exploring how it can be beneficial.
I agree with you 100%. And, I was reading something today as I'm prepping for the conference season, and it was about the AI adoption rate. And I had read it before that AI was adopted much faster than any other technology has ever been adopted before. But I was looking at the statistics of that, which are really alarming in the comparison to TVs and electricity and personal computers and the internet. The adoption rate is just very high for AI. And part of the reasoning is that we're already using so much technology already that those technologies are implementing AI. So whether or not you realize it or not, you're being impacted because these solutions that you're already engaged with are very much embedded in AI now.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're not directly using AI, all you've got to do is use a search engine
Yeah.
and it says like, like AI generated at the top and it kind of gives you the summaries and the links to click on. So you're exactly right. I think it's embedded in everything. And I think learning it or learning the tools and how they're using it is key, even if you're not going to go, and there are some people out there are some firms out there that are building their own AI tool, which is fantastic if they're able to do that and have that capability in-house. But most of us don't have that capability. And then but I think it's exactly to you said, is just being open-minded and willing to learn and explore.
Mm.
And you're probably using it today already, even if you don't realize.
Everybody's using it in some way. And I'm going to say, even my dad, which Emily, I have chatted before that he is a dataholic, and one of the things that he loves is chatting with people through AI. So he sounds very charming. But the other thing that he does is he's got an AI refrigerator. So it will also tell him what he's got inside of his refrigerator and make recommendations on what he should order from the grocery store and what he can make, what foods are available in his refrigerator. So what kind of recipes,
That is amazing.
right? And this we're talking about my dad. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
all impacted by AI, whether we're, fully engaged or not. It's here and it's happening, and it's a it's an exciting time.
I'm very jealous of your dad's fridge.
I don't think I need it knowing that much about me. I'm like, Dad,
Yeah, I don't
seriously,
want my
how many
fridge to
tubs?
tell me I need to go on a diet.
Well, and he's got like lots of tubs of ice cream. And I'm like, does it ever send you alerts about like, hey, this is not good, Dad? So, well, one of the things that I think about whenever considering AI in my own firm is buckets. And so, I really have focused in on the bookkeeping bucket and the review bucket and the deliverable bucket. And so those are key places where we have pain points in our own firm and want to address how AI can help us in those spaces. And I love that you've also incorporated this operational piece as well into your tech stack conversation.
Yeah, and that I will say is purely from a selfish perspective on my side. which is, yes, we've done a lot of thoughts and want to focus on exactly like you said, the transactional piece, the reconciliation piece. But, I started saying, well, what if? Can it do this and can it do that? And for me, I want to see high level areas that are going to flag certain, clients or certain transactions and areas that we really need to know. And it could be how we need to provide more support to the client, or it
Mhm.
could be scope creep. So we're kind of building in a lot of that capability into the AI tools, because if they have access to the accounting data on these clients and they can see our engagement letters, our contracts, the same way they could see an inventory report or a bank reconciliation, it's just another task in that sheet. So we're using it for 1099, like vendor reviews, just to kind of
Mhm.
flag that piece. So again, that's kind of a different area. We're using it to, review clients, if their cash funding is getting low, do we need to introduce them to other, sources of finance? Do we need to look at it from our perspective if they've got challenges on that side? Um, do they have scope creep?
Mhm.
Are we doing accrual-based accounting? Yet in their contract it says cash basis, because we want to make sure that our teams are doing everything we can to look after our clients, but we also know clients grow and clients change, and it's hard to consistently have what are we supposed to be doing versus what are we doing front of mind. So it's just these kind of indicators that are able to kind of raise up things at a sort of practice management level that I want to be aware of. And it's not necessarily, we may or may not take an action from it, but again, it's just highlighting, things that we can then start using and kind of, actioning for the both for the client and ourselves.
I love that vantage point because now what you're able to do is really have insights into the firm and how it's operating. And that piece is very smart because I think that as accountants, with the smaller firms being represented here, I think one of the things that many of my peers struggle with is how to get past themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
And so when you start to open up that vantage point and now you're considering operationally, how are we performing? You can start to evaluate, and that's definitely a wider lens, and you're going to get a wider amount of information.
Yeah. And also, certainly for smaller firms, but I think it applies to everybody. As partners, practice owners, you're pulled in so many different directions. You've got the client management, team management. You're trying to, look at your service offering, create developments there, do business development, and having these areas, it just reduces the time and the energy needed. And it's so easy to not look at some of those areas, because without AI, you've got to actively, either reach out to your team, do a project, review that scope. And those are big projects and take a lot of your energy and attention. But if they're being continuously monitored and it's not taking any time from your team, it's not taking any time from you, it
Mhm.
just kind of really helps with that, making everything seamless. So like for the smaller firms, it will help with margin, it's going to help with efficiency. It's also going to help with kind of the client relationships too, because you can be more proactive on that piece as well.
And with that data, no matter your size of firm, I think the thing that you can do with that data is you've got insights to what's happening. So, a while back, I was reviewing some data and I was looking at one of the team members had a high amount of items that were in review. And so it was an internal decision that could be made to say, is that a training opportunity because we can look at our tools and we can collect that data now very easily? Or is that a management or lead issue where things aren't getting processed as
Mhm.
quickly? So the depth of information that you can get very rapidly now,
Yeah.
I think is also happening in a very alarming rate as well.
Yes, yeah. And I think that by having that visibility and exactly to your point, able to really kind of using technology, see high level, like who's behind, who's not behind, like who's doing things too quickly. That could also be a, area
Hmm.
to look into. But, a lot of it is how can we get that data like readily available?
Hmm.
And then that means as, partners, as firm owners, you can provide your support in the right places versus just hoping and assuming they're okay. And you could have a team member that's suffering in silence and they don't want to reach out and they need help.
That's
um
huge.
yeah, so it's really not ever to penalize but to give visibility, to
Hmm.
know how best to support. And one of the things that we do is we try and make as much of that data visible to everyone so they can see and compare, like how are they doing, what's that person doing, and it really kind of gives them a sense of, if there's somebody that's this complete rock star at, like getting everything done well before the deadline, like, but how? Right. And
Right.
and for me, I'm going to say, what are you doing? Can
Hmm.
we can we roll that out across the team? And what are you doing that's
Let's
different
share
from
it.
everyone else? Exactly. Yeah.
I think that that's huge too. And I think that most of us are, that generous spirit. I think that's what most of us in the accounting industry are because we're behind the scenes people. We're super kind and we're in that, let me help each other mode. But I think the thing that we often do is suffer in silence.
It-
And the thing that I see often is you might have some superheroes on your team. And those are great people that are pounding out a lot of work. But the problem with that is you really need to rely on systems in order to be able to help you get to that finish line. Otherwise, you're going to have burnout, and that's not good for anybody. So that's where I feel like these tools are now truly for the first time ever able to pick up some of that burden and do what, I call the assisting piece.
yeah.
And that's what helps to alleviate that pain point.
Yeah, massively. And I think one of the benefits now is, and they've been doing this for a while, but it's getting a lot better, is the fact that tools are able to all connect with each other.
Mm,
Because everyone's going to be using a lot of different tools to do their day to day. And the information, it can be really difficult to obtain if it's kind of sporadically all over the place. Um, so, we're doing things like, creating dashboards that have that level of visibility for the team, and they're pulling from, different data sources to give everybody the complete picture. And this isn't, like we haven't built these things customized in-house. We're using tools and we're just building the dashboard within these tools. So everyone can kind of have the ability to do that. And I think you're exactly right with accountants kind of being behind the scenes, especially in practice, because you've got your clients, you might be on the same team at the same level, but your colleague has got their book of clients. So you're focused on your clients and you don't necessarily ever reach out to that person, even though you're on the same team, because you're so focused on your clients. But again,
siloed.
yeah, so having that availability, it's really, again, like focused on, how can we collaborate as a team? And if somebody has finished everything and everything's done and somebody's behind for whatever reason, it's the how can we share their time, their knowledge. And I think especially where people are still, to some extent working remotely or in various
Mm.
locations, having just visibility and transparency, I think is really beneficial.
I agree. I think that it's an exciting time to be able to explore AI. And I know that there's that apprehension to say, is it going to take my job? And I would say, working with a lot of tech very closely, I would say what I am seeing personally is it's there to assist. It's not smart enough, at least not yet, to take
Yeah.
over any jobs. It's really there to find out what is it that it can help us with and how it can do its role better to serve us. And
Yeah.
it frees us up to do what I'm going to take back to where you said earlier. the client relationship piece.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at being able to use these tools and kind of AI so that, instead of spending hours trying to reconcile, I don't know, a e-commerce channel clearing account, you can very quickly plug in the AI and it will be able to say, hey, I've looked at this, and it gives you the words. And I think that's where AI is great versus, what was before, which was reporting and a difference. And you would be like, well, what is that? It will say, hey, I think this difference is because of this transaction, or here is a duplicate. Go look here. So what could take you 10 hours might only take you 30. And then it gives you the ability to then, instead of just waiting to the end of the month, you can then proactively reach out to the client and get that information. But I think for
That's
me is
huge.
massive. And then when you think about accounting in general, and I will talk about this all day long, is that accounting is so historic.
Mm,
Um, we give reports, 1 week,
right.
2 week, 3 weeks, a month after it happened. But the use of AI, I completely agree. It's not going to replace people anytime soon because it doesn't know what you know about what the client's thinking and how they're working and what they're planning. And that relationship piece becomes the key, but it enables you to be so much more proactive. I mean, what
Mhm.
if you're now able to do real-time accounting for them? And then you're able to notice things in real time, and then you can phone up your client and let them know about something they need to be aware of versus finding out a month later. So I think it gives us the ability as advisors to really transform how the relationship we have, how we're looking after our clients for the better. So I think we're now
I
at an
agree.
opportunity where we can provide a better service than we've ever had before. And when you think of a lot of people, and it pains me when I hear this, but I hear it all the time, is, I always am like, how's your current firm? Like, just chatting with people, like, do you enjoy working with them? And they're like, no, I don't enjoy working with them, but they're probably all the same, right?
Yeah.
Or, something's got to go really wrong for them to switch. So I feel like the kind of sometimes like tradespeople maybe, but the expectation is,
Yeah.
the bar is set really low, which is such a shame.
Hmm.
And I think using technology and all the tools and all the AI is just going to be a good thing for the industry because it's really going
Yeah.
to just help improve the reputation just overall.
We talked a little bit about burnout, and I would say now you're really digging into the emotional side of the profession. And, as somebody who I enjoy talking about that side of it, because I think that 5 years ago, we saw a side of society as accounting professionals, and we stepped into that spot of answering phone calls with, you know, crushed clients. And so it
Hmm.
really took us into a very raw place as a profession. And I think there was many of us that struggled. And I think that you're right. Whenever I have talked to young professionals that are coming out of college and into the profession, and they're hearing we're working 50-hour normal, that's normal weeks. And,
Yeah.
they're thinking about, well, gosh, I'm graduated with my friends and they're wanting to start their families and they're starting to, grow dog farms or whatever they're doing. They're able
Yeah.
to do that next phase where our profession hasn't been able to take that leap as naturally because of the workload.
Yes. And I think that you're exactly right in terms of the image of, 50-hour weeks stuck set staring at a spreadsheet for eight
Mhm.
plus hours a day. And I think that's really harmful because when I think of what we do on our side, we are, yes, obviously focused on the numbers and the business and all of that piece, but actually the types of people that we have on our team and we want to encourage into the profession are the complete polar opposite of that. It's, we're looking for people to be energetic, wanting to speak with the clients, wanting as much face time as possible, eager to learn and, just have that approach. And I think that the reputation we've got in the industry as a whole is quite damaging. And I think the good thing is, and I think this goes for any issue like personal or business, is the first one is admit there's a problem.
Right.
Step one. We're at step one. And I think everybody's looking at how do we tackle it. And, I think that I will, obviously, there's a lot of areas, and this is where I'm very biased to the accounting side of the house. And why I love it so much is it doesn't fit that stereotype at all. And it can be exciting and it can be fun. Like I said, I felt like a kid in a candy shop, like trying to break these things. I say trying, breaking these things. Um, and I think that also, especially for people kind of coming out of college as well, AI is built into their life. It's not, you know, they don't use search engines. They literally use AI tools as their search engine. So they're so familiar with tools because they were born with tools like that already in place. So I
Yes.
think that's where we want to be really focusing on encouraging and kind of embracing that. Um, so I think if we can kind of solve a lot of that side of things, we're in a good spot. But no, we still have some work to do on kind of general brand and imaging of the profession for sure.
I agree. And I think that, as quickly as we're feeling the impact on our profession with the technology that's available, because it is here to assist us lighten that load, the same thing in colleges is happening. I've got a college daughter, and it's funny because her junior year, the colleges weren't really embracing AI. And her senior year, wow, just how quickly that has changed. And it's gone from, the profession and the graduate program it's changed so much because she's now more interested in learning what is available. And there's been such a big shift this year. So I would say the students that are coming out in probably next year and the year after, they're going to even be in this place where they've learned so much so quickly as well, because the colleges are trying hard to embrace what's happening. And even the colleges use QuickBooks Online for their accounting programs. That's very normal. And QuickBooks Online has done a lot to incorporate AI. And so
Yeah,
whether or not you're hearing it, knowing it, aware of it, they are. And so the
yeah,
college students, in accounting are already getting a big dose of
yeah.
AI.
Which is amazing. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking back to my college days, and we're still there, drawing the T accounts. It's like,
Yeah, not anymore. Well, I mean, no, they're really not. I was going to say maybe, but no. She brought her accounting homework home to say, Mom, she does not want to be an accountant. So she was like, I just want to pass the class. Please don't
tell me
try
the
and teach
answers and
me.
I'll move on.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so it's been fun and such a journey. Well, I have to say, I enjoy talking technology and I love finding a kindred spirit who does. Um, but as we're kind of wrapping up, what kind of final words would you have for somebody who's interested in AI, hasn't quite taken the leap yet? Like, where would you tell them to start?
Yeah, I think it could be overwhelming, the different levels. And myself, the way I really started was just honestly YouTube. And I was like, AI. Because I think if you even start embracing it, even if it's in your personal life, right? Like the fridge, like, can you write me a shopping list, please? Um, it then just gets you familiar and comfortable with it. Then you can start, looking at how do I utilize this in my practice and what tools are in place. But, I also felt quite overwhelmed. I would start to looking at some of these, like AI talks and discussions, and it was all about building your own tool and doing this, and here is this app, and it's this code. And I'm thinking, I'm actually an accountant. This is too much for me, and it was overwhelming. And I think if you go that route, you're just going to say, no, thank you, this isn't for me. So I think it's learning how to embrace it and getting excited, and then just starting to explore. And I would say start with the existing tools. So, like you said, like QBO is going to start doing it. There's probably a lot of tools in the tech stacks that you're using for your clients that are
Mhm.
using it or are planning to use it. So I think that's the easiest first step is, looking at those already. And then seeing how you can embrace that, like you said, in your workflows, looking at your tasks, um, versus just diving into the code. Because I tell you, for me, that was awful.
It was awful. And I have to say to you that I agree with you. People just have to jump in, and conferences are a wonderful place for people to go and learn, talk to people at the tables. Like that's my favorite thing,
Yeah,
is to go and sit down with people after a session and then just kind of like, what did you think?
yeah, yeah.
That to me is where I learned
And it
so much.
and it's finding people that are at the same stage that you're at. So,
Mhm.
trying to connect with people that are really trying to explore it and are thinking of, building it in the same ways. Because it's all well and good speaking to someone that's like, yeah, I've got it and I'm building my own tool, and all you're doing is you're sitting there and going, well, how does that apply to me? How can I use it? And I think it's, everybody's at different stages, and you're exactly right. If you go to a conference, there is going to be everybody in that room, of every spectrum, of every stage, of every firm size. And I think it's just speaking out and connecting at the tables, and you'll have some people at the table that have don't not interested and don't want to do it, and some people that want to explore it, and some people that are probably doing coding on their own, but they're probably the outliers. But it's that opportunity to learn and also not feel like you're alone in it too, which I think is really important.
And this is such a Wild West time too, that I don't feel like anybody should feel wrong about the stage that they're in,
Yes. And
because
I,
we're in
I, I
such a place of growing.
correct. I kind of liken it to maybe 15 years, I'd say 10, but maybe slightly more, like 10, 15 years ago when cloud accounting first came out, right? And it was we are in the cloud. Um, and at that point, there was so much variation. And I feel like with AI, that's where we're at now.
Very much so. And again, it's like the rapid change rate, though, is so increased because we're already in the cloud. We've already embraced it. We have embraced all of the apps that are in the cloud. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, SaaS-based firms, you're really being inundated with a lot of AI and opportunity. So it is a very exciting time. And I would say for anybody who's interested in AI and wanting to learn more about technology, not only go to conferences and talk, but also go to classes. And we have got an exciting class that's coming up. So at Scaling New Heights, Emily and I will both be there, and Matt Tate will be joining. And I'm moderating a panel where you're going to be talking about the AI that you have incorporated in your firm. And we're going to do some like videos so people can see behind the hood and know what's going on and what to expect.
Yeah, it's all good to talk about it, but it's meaningless until you can kind of peek behind the curtain and see how it can apply. So really excited, and also really looking forward to meeting, people from other firms as well, and chatting everything about technology and AI. Because
I
I'm sure
agree.
there's a lot we can all learn from kind of speaking with everybody.
I am going to pass along a compliment from somebody who gave you a compliment, and I'm going to tell you it was very cool. Yesterday, I had a interview with Joe Woodard, and so I was like, "Yay, Joe's interviewing me." And I was talking about the session and mentioned your name, and he was like, "Wow, you've got some really heavy hitters in there."
Well, there
So,
we go. I will take that compliment all day long. Don't let my head get too big. But that doesn't mean there is not probably a million things that I could learn from everybody in that room.
ah, well said. And I love that you're open to the conversation. Emily,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining and
Yeah,
sharing
thank
with
you.
everybody your experience.
Amazing. Thank you. And looking forward to the session.
Me too.
Yeah.